I held off on building this PC because I was expecting this to pan out a little bit differently. I was initially planning on building this PC right here with one of the new Ryzen 9000 CPUs, likely the 9700X, because we had all seen AMD slides and the hype around it, giving us the hope or idea that it would be way better than it ultimately turned out to be. Well, fast forward a few weeks after the launch and we can all see that isn't the case, and the true gaming CPU champion remains the older AMD Ryzen 7 7800X3D. That CPU and a few other components ultimately make this incredible looking gaming PC for under $2,000. I'll be completely honest with you guys, this PC isn't all about min-maxing and the best value. If you want that, grab the Ryzen 5 7600 and pair it with the fastest GPU in your budget. The 7600 can even keep up with an RTX 4090 in a lot of gaming scenarios. But this PC build is all about style and practicality while offering plenty of performance. But before we run through the parts choices, I'd just like to say a massive thank you to MSI for sponsoring this video and providing some of their components for this PC build. So with that out of the way, let's run you through the components inside this system. And if you're interested in any of these components, feel free to use my affiliate links in the description down below for the most up-to-date pricing as well as some alternatives. First, from this video's sponsor and the largest thing, we have the case, the MSI MAG Pano M100R PZ, a beautiful micro ATX case with plenty of tempered glass to allow us to look at our components from any angle. This case also comes equipped with 4 ARGB fans included and also a fan/RGB hub in the rear. So managing all those cables is a little bit of a chore. I'm looking forward to when MSI has some of their own magnetic daisy chaining fans in the future, or just some regular daisy chaining fans, just to eliminate some of those cables. I'm not even fussy, I'm not that bothered about the magnets. I just want less cables. The PZ part of the case's name stands for Project Zero, which means it's compatible with MSI's Project Zero motherboards. These have all of their connections on the motherboard's rear. That might sound a little bit odd at first, but it does allow for an incredibly stealthy look from the front of your system. The back? Well, maybe not as clean and stealthy back there. So with a case like this, it only makes sense for us to try out the MSI B650M Project Zero motherboard. This thing looks so good with its silver armor covering the majority of the board, and anywhere there would have been slots for your PSU, ARGB, or SATA cables or fan headers, they've all been relocated to the rear. I'm a big fan of this silver aesthetic, and I feel it matches really well whether you opt for an all white or all black build. As someone who does a lot of case reviews, I'm really interested to see how manufacturers start to incorporate this into their future cases and how they plan to manage the cables for Project Zero style boards going forwards. The B650M Project Zero is a B650 motherboard with plenty of I/O on the rear, including 7 USB Type-A ports, 2 USB Type-C, antennas for Wi-Fi 6E, as well as 2.5 gig Ethernet. We also have support for 2 PCIe 4.0 M.2 slots, and of course the latest AMD Ryzen CPUs. With an easy BIOS update, you can use this board with the new Ryzen 9000 CPUs, or you can do what I did and just opt for the more superior gaming CPU, the Ryzen 7 7800X3D. This 8-core CPU is an absolute champ for gaming. It outperforms everything else on the market while pulling around 65 to 70 watts under maximum load. If you have the budget and your primary focus is gaming, then this CPU is an absolute no-brainer. However, as I mentioned in the intro, if you want to save some money, the Ryzen 5 7600 or Ryzen 7 7700 are more affordable options that will give you fantastic value for your money, though a little bit less performance in gaming. For RAM, the absolute sweet spot for AMD Ryzen CPUs is 32GB of 6000 MHz RAM with a CAS latency of 30, or CL30 is how you might see it written on the purchase page. Kingston provided me with some of their Fury Beast RGB modules. These are two 16GB sticks for a total of 32, running at 6000 MHz. Sounds perfect. Though they are CL36, which is a bit of a bummer. However, if you ditch the RGB, you can get the same Kingston kit with better latency for around the exact same price. Or you could just grab some Corsair RGB RAM for about the same price as well. In hindsight, I wish I just bought some of my own RAM, because I don't like the idea that we've left performance on the table for basically the same price. Kingston also provided the SSD, which is the Fury Renegade 1TB. It offers blazing speeds of up to 7,300 megabytes per second on the reads and 7,000 megabytes per second on the writes. Funnily enough, this is the same SSD I bought a few months back in a 2TB flavor to fit inside my PS5. So far so good on that front, and I've got no issues with using this 1TB drive again today. However, if you do have a little bit spare budget, a 2TB SSD is something I would absolutely recommend, as games just keep getting bigger. Even though I just said the Ryzen 7 7800X3D only pulls about 70 watts under load, MSI did send over a 360 AAO cooler, and I wanted to use it because it perfectly matches with this build's aesthetic. This is the MEG Coreliquid E360, a great budget 360mm all-in-one liquid CPU cooler that includes 3 PWM ARGB fans and a rotatable ARGB pump head too. Of course, if you want to save money, the 240mm version would be absolutely fine with our CPU, or you could even just get an air cooler. I opted for the ever popular and reliable Corsair RM750E for the power supply. Of course, you can always grab the 850 watt version or even the 1000 watt version for a little more future-proofing. However, a 750 watt power supply is adequate for our super efficient CPU and GPU combination. The Corsair RM750E is a fully modular 80 plus gold rated 750 watt power supply that has the bonus of being PCIe 5.0 compatible. So if you're making use of an NVIDIA GPU that uses this 16-pin 12-volt high-power cable, then you can get a much cleaner look and eliminate the need for any ugly dongles. And that perfectly leads us to the GPU that MSI provided, which is ultimately why I decided to opt for a high-end CPU in the first place. When building a PC, you usually set a budget. Find one of the most expensive GPUs for your budget, and then work your way back from there. As I said before, if we'd opted for a Ryzen 5 or budget motherboard and cheaper cooler case, we could have squeezed in a higher end GPU into this budget without any problems, but our goal at the beginning was to create something that just looks incredible at the same time as performing kind of okay. So the MSI Gaming X Slim 4070 Ti Super helps us achieve that. The clue is in the name. It's a slim 2.5 slot GPU that fits comfortably inside our build. It doesn't just dominate the entire system and cover up most of the motherboard, so we can still see that silver armor on our B650 board. The 4070 Ti Super is one of NVIDIA's newest GPUs, which launched earlier this year. It offers 16GB of VRAM compared to the 12GB found on the other 4070 models, and it gives us plenty of horsepower for 1440p and 4K gaming. Not to mention, if you care about ray tracing or DLSS frame generation, then NVIDIA beats AMD in that category. Of course, if you just want pure FPS and don't care for any of NVIDIA's AI upscaling or RTX effects, then the RX 7900 XTX is a similar price to this and offers a massive upgrade in raw FPS compared to this 4070 Ti Super, as long as you just don't care about ray tracing or having to use FSR instead of DLSS, but you will likely get a lot higher frames in a lot of multiplayer games. So if you are interested in genuinely min-maxing for the ultimate performance, the description below will include a list of alternative components, but if you're happy with how this PC looks and you want to know exactly how it performs, well, let's find out. I'll be honest, I really enjoyed gaming on this PC, and I'll be gutted when I have to send these parts back to MSI. As you can see from these quick graphs, we were able to get incredible frame rates across the board at both 1080p and 1440p. However, if you do want to step things up to 4K with ray tracing enabled, this system can comfortably handle it, assuming you make use of DLSS. Though I will say I didn't use frame generation to achieve any of these numbers in the graphs. One thing I have to mention is how quiet this system is during gaming sessions. I ended up getting sucked into Ratchet and Clank for a couple of hours one evening, and I could barely even hear the PC over the monitor's speakers. I also thought I should take a quick note of the temperatures whilst I was playing, and it's really impressive. We were hitting just over 60 degrees on both the CPU and GPU after like a couple hours of gaming, and I think it was about like 24-25 degrees in the room at the time. But I'll give you guys a quick noise test so you can see how this system sounds whilst gaming. So there we have it, a $2,000 gaming PC that looks as good as it performs. I enjoy building with the Project Zero board, and I see this becoming a mainstay or a good alternative for PC builders in the future. I'm keen to see how this approach works in other cases with different dimensions and constraints, but you have to admit, it's just so much cleaner to look at. It was a bit tricky to cable manage in the case I used here today, but I think this motherboard style is perfect for a dual chamber chassis where you've got enormous amounts of empty space behind the motherboard. the final product looks absolutely incredible and I'm thrilled with how this system turned out. If I was to change just one thing, I think it would be to change that GPU cable for a custom cable, something maybe black and white or pure white or just all black, just so it looks a little bit cleaner, but the standard black kind of blends in and at this sort of angle you can't really see it, so it's hard to say. You either want to make it a focal point or you want to try and blend it in. I'm not really sure. Maybe you guys can tell me your thoughts about that in the comment section below. Anyway guys, that brings us to the end of the video. What do you think? Could you see yourself grabbing a Project Zero motherboard in the future? Or do you think that our PC build focused too much on aesthetics and not enough on performance? Please leave your suggestions in that comment section below. And if you enjoyed this video, feel free to click that like button. And if my face hasn't offended you, don't forget to get subscribed. If you want to check out any of the products I've mentioned or used in this system, check the description for my affiliate links and I'll catch you guys in the next one.